The group of people you're looking at right now are those who are convinced that Donald Trump is guilty. They just got the word that their assumptions have been confirmed by jurors. They applauded, they cheered. Settle down a bit now. You'll see one of them is carrying a banner, Trump convicted. They must have made that to bring with them, but it's a big crowd who came out here and is very happy with the verdict. Bob, if you pan over to the left a little bit on the other side of the park and separated by stanchions, you will see a group of people, a crowd of people who have been here. It's a bit larger now, but who've been here every day in support of Donald Trump, and you've been hearing them throughout the day yelling and screaming. This crowd is a bit more raucous than the anti-Trump crowd, but I'm looking at a group of people who kind of look bewildered to me. Maybe you can see a bit better than I can, but there is someone talking, a lot of people holding up their cameras, but a really kind of subdued reaction from my vantage point. They know, we were talking to many of them today, they absolutely know that there is going to be an appeal. And one of the really interesting conversations I had today with several people independently on that side of the stanchions, they are convinced that no matter what the verdict is today, it will not at all harm the political trajectory of candidate for president Donald Trump. They're absolutely convinced of that. I believe there was a Marist poll today that showed that they may have a pretty good point about that. So right now, this is the park. It's called Collect Pond Park is the name of the park on Center Street across from the criminal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. All of these people, a bit more than usual, have been coming out every day watching this trial, being for some just a part of history, for some today vindication of what they think, for some vindication for them who think that this has been a witch hunt and a political prosecution. So much about this legal process is actually a very political process, and depending on what side you're on, you have that perspective of why it's a political process. But guilty on 34 counts. I just want to take a moment and absorb that we are documenting history today. No matter what else happens, a lot is going to happen. Let me talk about what the next process is, which will not happen today.
Glenna, before you do that, let's take some people inside the courtroom from just a moment, just based on some of the reports that we're getting from media outlets. One is the former president, Donald Trump, unresponsive while the jury was reading the verdict. He was sitting sort of slack in the defense table. We understand Mr. Trump now looking at the jury. He was, at least, as they were being polled, to confirm that their decision of guilty on all counts. The judge is thanking the jury. He tells them that he admires and appreciates their hard work and praises them for their engagement and their investment. Quite typical of judges after a long case. He said, quote, "You gave this matter the attention that it deserved, and I thank you for that." Glenna, just for a moment, if you can just kind of take us from the legal realm to the political side. The overtones of this, a convicted felon, former President Donald Trump, still obviously going to be the Republican nominee for president and running for the White House in a very tight race at this point. It's very likely that he's going to appeal this, so he still gets to run for office and he will still be on the ballot in every state come November, yes?
That is what we understand. Again, uncharted waters that we are in, but he is still running. If he had been a convicted felon first, I don't think he'd be, or in office, I'm sorry, if he was in office and then became a convicted felon, he'd be out of office, but he's not in office yet. So the theory, as the Constitution goes, if voters want a convicted felon as their president and a majority and the electoral majority puts him there, I believe that that is entirely possible. One of the uncharted, unprecedented waters that we're swimming in as of 4:30 today. The appeal is, I'm going to go out on a limb and say there is going to be an appeal. In fact, Donald Trump's attorneys as much as said so. I'm not sure the grounds that they'll appeal, but there will be an appeal.
And Glenna, speaking on this, the political side of this, there were polls before this verdict, obviously, that just came down a little minutes ago. There were polls that said that this was not going to, whether Trump was guilty or not guilty, it was not going to change their opinions, the people who were polled, on how they would vote in this election. Now this verdict has come down. That might change. You're in this political world. What are your thoughts? Do you think that might change? These polls will change? Or do you think these Trump supporters will remain steadfast?
Well, I can tell you what some Trump reporters have absolutely told us is that they are steadfast, because the thought process among really hardcore supporters of Donald Trump is that this whole process is a sham. It's a witch hunt, that there is no crime, there was no crime. They believe that this criminal prosecution and 3 others levied against the president that have yet to play out, former president, that have yet to play out, are purely political and brought by, they call it lawfare instead of warfare, they call it lawfare.